In our next presentation, we're going to talk about the different kinds of muscles and the major groups that we have. Oftentimes, muscles are named where they are attached, what action they have, the overall size of them, or the number of attachments. And so let's just kind of dive right into the different types of muscles. So ones that you'll have to know for the test include the sternocleidomastoid, which is the kind of the back part of the neck, and it allows the head to be pulled from one side and also towards the chest. The frontalis, you'll have to know. Basically, all of these that I'm mentioning, you're going to have to know. Frontalis, it is the muscle of the forehead, allows us to raise or lower our eyebrows. Orbicularis oris, so there's two orbicularis. Orbicularis oris is of the mouth, allows for lips to pucker, the kissing motion, allows us to formulate words. The orbicularis oculi is one that goes around the eyes. And so basically in this diagram, we would want you to know all of these words, and then also temporalis, occipital, sternocleidomastoid. So the ones in the pictures in this slide, I would want you to know for the test. All right. Muscles of the head continued. So again, the oculi, that goes with the eye. Zygomaticus is in the cheek area. The masseter is also a muscle to know. And then the temporalis we mentioned in the previous slide. Arm muscles. The major ones that I want you guys to know, this isn't necessarily a muscle of the arm, but it does connect to the arm, is the pectoralis major. That's the biggest muscle of the pec area. Latissimus dorsi also is more of the back area, although it does wrap around to the front of our body. Deltoids, that's the muscle of the shoulder. And then these other two I will not have you know for the test. Biceps brachii, it gets its name because there are two parts of the bicep. Brachialis flexes the arm at the elbow. So here you're seeing the brachialis here. And the brachioradialis is kind of the only muscle of the lower arm that I want you guys to know. And just understand that it starts in the brachii region, but then goes on the radial side, the radius side. Remember, above from the thumb is the radius muscle. All right. Triceps brachii is the last one that I want you to know for the arm muscles. And that is, of course, an antagonist to the biceps muscle. Wrist, hand, and finger, although there are a lot of them, I'm not going to have you know for the test. It's just kind of hard to get them on the test and memorize those. But certainly if you're going to college, they will want you to know the muscles of the wrist, hand, and fingers. Notice that a lot of them say like carpi, radialis, flexor. So there again, we're looking at what are they covering, what are they moving, and where are they originating. So, and here's another one. Again, these I'm not going to have you guys know. All right, so then we get into the muscles of the chest area or abdomen. So the diaphragm is not in this image, but that is the muscle that is beneath our lungs. So when we take a big, deep breath in, that diaphragm rises. When we exhale, it will lower. And so our lungs themselves are not a muscle. They're basically a tissue of airous sacs that are going to help take in oxygen as well as release carbon dioxide. Other muscles that we're seeing in this diagram, the serratus anterior, they're kind of on the outside of our ribs. Inside or in between the ribs are what are called intercostal muscle. Then you're seeing the different parts of the abdomen here. We'll get to the slide in just a sec, but we lose the image. So we have rectus abdominis. This is where we have our six-pack. All of us have a six-pack. It's just a matter of whether or not it's showing through, if it cuts through the fat. For guys, we only have one layer of fat to cut through, so it's much easier for guys to have a six-pack than for girls. Here's that pectoralis major muscle that we talked about in the previous slide. And then you're also seeing the latissimus dorsi. You're seeing the external obliques in this diagram also. So external, internal obliques. So if we just go back a slide, the external obliques, they're on the outside. This one, internal obliques are inside of those, and then this is the latissimus dorsi. On the test, it'll be very evident which ones I'm trying to ask you guys about, just to clear up that for clarification. So, external, internal obliques, they're on the outside typically. or what would be the hip area. Here's a nicer diagram of these. So rectus abdominis. Here we have the internal oblique, and then the external oblique, and then our latissimus dorsi would be wrapping around. Serratus anterior covers the rib area kind of by our armpit. Pectoralis minor is not visible, covered by the major, but that does have a connection to our clavicle area. And here we're seeing the sternocleidomastoid, the trapezius, deltoid, some of the other ones. In this diagram, ones that you don't have to know would be the transverse abdominis. You don't have to know basically the connective tissue. You don't have to know this connective tissue, but all of these muscles I would want you to know for the next exam. Our next slide is of the pectoral girdle. So these are in like the shoulder area and the pec area. So the trapezius, trapezoid type shape, pectoralis minor, but also pectoralis major, as we mentioned, would be covering those. So we go back to our picture there. Here's the trapezius, pectoralis minor is underneath, major is over the top. And so the trapezius stops at the clavicle, and then the deltoid goes over the shoulder. Sternocleidomastoid is mainly for the head motion, where trapezius still does have like shoulder shrug, would be a muscle group that would be activated during that time. Okay, the muscles of the leg. Mr. Poncelet, gastrocnemius. The soleus runs on the outside of that. And then hamstrings are made up of a bunch of different muscle groups. The main ones that I want you guys to know are the biceps femoris. So if someone tears the hamstring, usually it's either that or the semitendinosus one that is get torn, but the ones that I want you to know are biceps femoris. Gluteus maximus is the largest muscle of our body, and then gluteus medius is to the median or middle of the rear. Now let's go to our next group of muscles in the leg. So rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, and the vastus intermedius are more so on the frontal view of the body. Rectus femoris goes right across the front. Vastus lateralis is above our knee on the outside. Vastus medialis is above our knee but on the inside. Those I would like you to know. And then the sartorius is one that starts near the pelvis and then wraps itself all the way around to the knee. Ankle, foot, and toe. Again, we don't have to know many of these. However, these three I do want us to know. The tibialis anterior. It's what makes our ankle basically have flexion. Extensor digitorum longus. That's what makes our, if we say like point our toes or for a ballerina, that muscle group is certainly going to be activated at that time. And then gastrocnemius is the muscle of the calf, of course. And the soleus, that is going to connect it to the sole of our foot, kind of goes around the back side of our ankle, and then the flexor digitorum longus. There's really no other way to study for these than to just practice, practice, practice. And again, some of them have some Latin, some of them have some big long words, but any of the guides that we have used in class and the things that I will post online, certainly use those to help you out on the test.